Have you ever promised yourself this would be the year everything changes? You buy the notebook. You write the goals. You feel that rush in your chest. This time will be different. For 3 days, maybe 5, you wake up early. You go to the gym. You read before bed. You say no to junk food. You feel powerful, disciplined, in control. And then something small happens. You feel tired. You miss one morning. You skip one workout, just one. But that one becomes 2. 2 becomes a week. And suddenly the notebook is closed. The shoes are back in the closet. The books gather dust on the shelf. What hurts isn't the missed workout. It's the story you start telling yourself. I always do this. I never follow through. Maybe I'm just not that kind of person. So the year continues. Busy, comfortable, unchanged. Then January comes again. You set the same goals, you feel the same excitement, and you walk straight back into the same cycle. Big promises, short bursts of effort, quiet surrender. The real trap isn't laziness. It isn't lack of ambition. It's the exhausting swing between intensity and collapse. You don't fail because you want too little. You fail because you try to change everything at once. And this is exactly where David lived. Not in a dramatic failure, not in poverty, not in chaos, but in that quiet space between potential and proof. David was 32, an accountant, reliable, smart, the kind of man everyone described as doing fine. But inside, he carried a constant frustration. Every January 1st, he would wake up with fire in his chest. This is my year. He didn't think small. He wrote everything down. Exercise every day, 1 hour minimum. Read 50 pages before bed. Learn Spanish 45 minutes daily. Wake up at 5 a.m. Eat clean. Meditate 30 minutes. It looked impressive on paper. It felt powerful in the moment. For 3 days, he did all of it. Perfectly. He walked into work energized. Co-workers noticed. What's changed? He would smile. I'm becoming the best version of myself. But by day 4, his legs ached. By day 5, the early alarms felt brutal. By day 6, he skipped one habit, just one, then another. By week 2, everything collapsed. Not because he was incapable, not because he was lazy, but because he was trying to rebuild his entire identity in a single week. And every time the system broke, it confirmed his worst fear. Maybe I can't change. David told himself the problem was discipline. He believed the solution was intensity. If he was going to change, he would change everything. All at once. No half measures. Small steps felt weak, embarrassing, pointless. His younger sister once asked him gently, "Why don't you just start smaller?" He shook his head. "If I'm going to do this, I need to do it properly." Properly meant extreme. Extreme meant unsustainable. What David didn't see was the pattern hiding in plain sight. 12 times in 6 years he had repeated the same ritual. 12 ambitious lists, 12 bursts of perfection, 12 quiet collapses, hope, effort, exhaustion, shame, over and over. Each failure didn't just erase progress, it chipped away at his identity. Late at night, staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, he would whisper a thought he never said out loud. What if I'm just not the kind of person who finishes things? That question hurt more than any missed workout. Because once you start doubting your identity, every new goal feels heavier. The tragedy wasn't that David aimed high. It was that his all-or-nothing mindset guaranteed one outcome. If he couldn't do everything, he would do nothing. And nothing, repeated for years, becomes a life that never moves. The breaking point didn't come in his apartment. It came in a hotel ballroom. 10 years after graduation, David stood at his university reunion, holding a glass of water he barely touched. The room buzzed with laughter. Success stories floated through the air. One former classmate had launched a startup. Another had written a book. Someone had run 3 marathons. Someone else had traveled to 30 countries. David smiled when they asked, "So, what have you been up to?" "Working, staying busy." Safe words, small words. But inside, something tightened. "I've been trying to change for 10 years, and I'm exactly where I started." Then he saw Marcus. In college, Marcus had been the last person anyone expected to succeed. Late to lectures, barely passing exams, no visible ambition. But now Marcus looked different. Leaner, confident, grounded. There was a steadiness in him David couldn't ignore. "You look incredible," David said. "What happened?" Marcus smiled like he'd heard this question before. "I started getting 1% better every day." David frowned. 1%? That's nothing. Marcus didn't argue. He simply reached into his pocket and handed David a business card. "If you're tired of feeling stuck," he said quietly, "call her." For the first time in years, David felt something unfamiliar. Not pressure, not shame, curiosity. The next morning, David almost didn't make the call. Part of him wanted to throw the card away. Another program, another promise, another disappointment. But curiosity is powerful when hope is tired. So he went. Coach Helen's office surprised him. No loud quotes on the wall, no "hustle harder" slogans. Just a desk, 2 chairs, a whiteboard. She listened as David explained everything. The ambitious lists, the perfect first week, the inevitable crash, the shame. When he finished, she didn't look impressed. She didn't look disappointed. "You're not lazy," she said calmly. "You're using the wrong strategy." Then she stood up and wrote 2 lines on the board. 1.01 to the power of 365 equals 37.8. 0.99 to the power of 365 equals 0.03. David stared. "I don't get it." Helen turned toward him. "If you improve by just 1% every day for a year, you don't get a little better. You get 37 times better." She tapped the second number. "But if you get 1% worse every day, you almost disappear." Something shifted inside him. He had been trying to leap forward. But real change, she explained, isn't one dramatic jump. It's 365 tiny steps. And tiny steps, repeated daily, rewrite your future. David expected a complicated system, a strict schedule, a detailed plan, a list of rules. Instead, Helen asked one question. "What's the smallest version of the change you want?" "I want to exercise," David said. "Smaller." "I want to jog." "Smaller." He hesitated. "I want to put on my running shoes." Helen smiled. "Perfect. For the next 7 days, your only job is to put on your running shoes every morning. That's it. You don't have to run. You don't even have to step outside." David almost laughed. "That won't accomplish anything." Helen's voice stayed calm. "You've been trying to become a different person overnight. That's why you fail. Identity changes through repetition, not intensity." She leaned forward slightly. "You don't need to become someone who runs 5 miles. You need to become someone who puts on running shoes." It sounded too small, too easy, almost embarrassing. But that was the point. The habit had to be so small, it removed resistance. So small it felt impossible to fail. For the first time in years, David felt something unfamiliar. Hope without pressure. No heroic transformation. No dramatic reset. Just one simple promise. Put on the shoes. Every day. The first morning felt ordinary. No surge of motivation, no music playing in the background. The alarm rang. David sat up slowly. For a second, the old voice returned. What's the point? But this time the task was too small to argue with. He reached down, put on the running shoes. Then he walked to the kitchen and made coffee. That was it. Day 1. Day 2, the same. Shoes on. Sit on the couch. Day 3, he walked to the door, then turned back. Still a win. On day 4, his sister visited. Are you going for a run? She asked. No, he said, tying the laces. I'm just putting on my shoes. She looked confused. David didn't explain. By day 5, he stepped outside for 30 seconds. Cold air, quiet street, back inside. Day 6, something shifted. He stood on the sidewalk longer than usual. Standing still felt awkward. So he jogged. 2 minutes. Nothing heroic, nothing impressive. But it wasn't forced. It happened because the identity was forming. He was becoming someone who shows up, not someone who transforms overnight. Just someone who keeps the promise. By the end of the first month, something subtle had changed. David wasn't thinking about motivation anymore. He wasn't asking himself, do I feel like running today? He simply put on the shoes, and most days, his feet carried him outside. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. No announcement, no dramatic milestone, just quiet repetition. One afternoon at work, a colleague asked casually, "Are you a runner now?" David almost dismissed it. He only ran 15 minutes a day. That didn't feel impressive. But then he paused. He had run 28 days in a row. He had never done anything consistently for 28 days. Yeah, he heard himself say, I guess I am. That sentence mattered more than the distance, because the real shift wasn't physical. It was internal. He no longer saw himself as someone trying to exercise, and he saw himself as a runner. From that identity, Helen introduced the next 1% step. Read for 10 minutes before bed. Not 50 pages, not an hour. 10 minutes. Soon, he added 5 minutes of Spanish. Small actions, stacked carefully. Not explosive change, but stable momentum. 6 months passed almost quietly. No dramatic turning point. No viral before and after photo. But the math was working. David was now running 30 minutes most mornings. Not because he forced himself, because that's what runners do. He had read 15 books. 10 minutes a night had turned into pages, then chapters, then finished stories. His Spanish improved enough to hold simple conversations. 5 minutes a day had become a completed beginner course. He added a small, healthy breakfast, then 5 minutes of journaling. Nothing felt overwhelming. Nothing required a heroic burst of willpower. He wasn't doing everything. He was doing a few things consistently. When his sister visited again, she stopped at the doorway. "You look different," she said slowly. David laughed. "I just got 1% better." She shook her head. "No, you look like a completely different person." That surprised him, because the change had felt invisible from the inside. Day by day, nothing seemed extraordinary. But zoom out 6 months, and the difference was undeniable. That's how real transformation works. It doesn't scream. it compounds. You don't feel 37 times better in one moment. You wake up one day and realize the person in the mirror keeps promises. And that changes everything. 1 year after that painful reunion, David walked back into the same hotel ballroom. Same lights, same music, same kind of conversations. But this time, he wasn't standing in the corner. People noticed him before he spoke. "You look incredible. What's your secret?" He didn't talk about discipline. He didn't talk about motivation. He said something much simpler. "I just got 1% better every day." Some people nodded politely. They didn't really hear him, but a few leaned closer. The ones who were tired of starting over. The ones exhausted by the all-or-nothing cycle. "How do you actually start?" someone asked. David smiled. "Start smaller than you think is necessary. If you want to write a book, write 1 sentence. If you want to get fit, put on your workout clothes. If you want to learn guitar, play for 2 minutes. Consistency over intensity, identity over emotion. 1 promise kept every day. That's the rule. So here's your challenge. Starting today, choose 1 habit. Just 1. Make it so small it feels almost ridiculous. Then commit to 30 days. No expansion, no stacking. Just prove to yourself that you can keep a tiny promise. And tell me in the comments, what's your 1%? Because the person who keeps 1 small promise can change their entire life.